Today is 1089 day. I'm sharing lessons on learning. I'm learning. I hope this supports your dreams, your goals, allow you to become the person that you want to become. Today we speak about self-perception. It's interesting that in 1089 days I never spoke about self-perception. And why is that? Why is that? I think that I realize that self-perception is such a massive and fascinating topic, such an important topic. If we get it wrong, if we get self-perception wrong, it will be much, much harder on us to achieve greatness in life. And today we'll really start digging into self-perception. I think maybe you'll need to do even more because that is a very, very important topic. I think that a lot of times have a mirror in life, and that mirror is foggy. I think you probably have experienced that you have been in a bathroom, in a washroom, and the window is foggy. What do? You try to clean it to see it clearly. Or you driving in a car and there is a foggy window, and if you want to see external things, you just clean the window just to be able to see it. And I think that the problem is that a lot of times, our internal mirror is foggy, and we don't clean it. We don't clean it because are not aware of it, and because if you don't clean it, what kind of picture are you seeing about yourself? What kind of picture you see? Not clear, foggy, and that's why people say, like, I just don't know, like, who I am. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. Because self-perception is potentially one thing that is sabotaging us to move forward. I think that a lot of times we have, like, some imposter syndrome, but because our internal mirror, is foggy. And we need to clean it to be able to see ourselves clearly. Second thing that I really need to mention is that when I think about self-perception, self-perception is something that's working on. Self-perception is like internal garden in our mind. That means that we need to really make sure that we clean it, get rid of weed, and really plant seeds that are of greatness. Because a lot of times when you have weeds and plants and flowers and everything together and growing just as they want to grow, we start losing the picture. Which one is good things, which are bad things? Everything is mixed. So when you actually weed yourself from negativity and add the things that adds positivity, greatness, of course, it's much easier to have a better self-perception when you clean your internal garden. So let's look into exactly what we're supposed to know about self-perception. So number one, we need to understand exactly that if you want to have a self-perception, we need to think. So we need to have ability to reflect. We need to have ability to really think about, okay, so what kind of person I am? So that means that thinking is very, very important in self-perception. If you don't think, if you don't reflect, if you don't build self-awareness, self-perception will be very, very difficult. So we need to be able to assess, interpret things, our emotions, our behaviors, just to make sure that we have a self-perception. Second thing that I think that is very, very important is that when we think about self-perception, that could be a great thing, advantageous thing, and it could be one thing that really hinders your success. What are those things? Labels. Labels. What are labels? That means that, or titles. What kind of titles do you give yourself? Because titles are very important. Labels are very important. So do you see yourself as a consistent person? Or do you see yourself as a person who always gives up? Do you see yourself as a failure? What kind of label do you put on yourself? Because if you see yourself as intelligent, you will do what intelligent people do. And it's part of the identity, because of course, if identity is that this is who I am. But sometimes you could just put labels, like what kind of person you are. And we need to be very, very careful where those labels are coming from. That means that are you putting that because you made a mistake? You put that label because of course when you think about creating labels, so that means if you're doing something every single day, that builds a great label. I'm a consistent person. I'm a courageous person. But if you do something negative every single day, that could potentially build a negative identity as well, negative label. So we need to be very careful putting labels ourselves. Now, there is three self that we need to assess. There is actual self, that's who you think you are right now. Then there is a ideal self, who you will love to be in the future, who you will love to be like right now. And third one is like odd self. So that means that what do you feel your society wants you to be? What do you feel your friends want you to be? What do you feel your family wants you to be? Because sometimes ideal self and what your family wants from you is different. Such an interesting thing. Sometimes we really work and take actions based what our families want, not what we want. Now, I understand sometimes it's important, especially if you parent, to adjust your actions based on the family because there's a lot of people depend on you. But a lot of times, even kids change the way how they act and what they do based on what their parents says. I think that a lot of times that could potentially lead to disappointment, lead to regret, because we're supposed to work on becoming the ideal self, not what other people want us to be. I think that there's a lot of times there is the difference, different between really that actual self, ideal self, and a lot of times that could potentially create some kind of feelings. So that means if there is a massive gap between actual self and who you would love to be in the future, that could be creating massive disappointment or dissatisfaction, unfulfillment. But of course, I understand it. Working towards becoming that version of yourself that you want to be, that will be a massive boost of energy because that's very exciting to become. It's exciting to change. Now, of course, changes again. This is a topic of another day, but it's exciting to become that person. But now, if you potentially working to become the best version of you, the ideal version of you, but you're not focusing on becoming the person that you want, that your parents, your family wants to be, that could create a lot of guilt. They work so hard for me, and now I'm doing things for my own needs. I think that's a very, very dangerous thing that parents or other family or our friends do that truly impose dreams on people. Now, when I think about other things that we need to think is, and I think we need to think about the role of emotion in self perception. Because one thing is that we need to understand that self perception and emotions is very, very highly correlated. That means that how you will be able to regulate emotions is based how you see yourself. Because if you see yourself as as a strong person who is able to persevere and push through, you will be able to regulate your emotions much better. But if you see yourself as not capable, as a loser, as a failure, at that moment, to regulate your emotions will be much much harder because you don't want to start something. You don't want to really pursue meaningful things. You just get disappointed much 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 faster. So self perception will allow to persevere much much longer. And that's why people say like, why some people quit so easily? Why some people quit so easily? And I think that the key is self perception. They have wrong self perception. They look in the mirror and they see failure. That's not who they are. It's just a foggy mirror says them that they are foggy internal mirror says that they are failure. And we understand that there's no failures. There's no failures. It's just a that's what they did, not who they are. And there's a massive, massive difference. And I think that's second thing that we need to understand is that we are not able to add value to ourselves if we do not value ourselves. So that means that we need to value ourselves to add value to ourselves. And self perception is a key here because if you see yourself as not worthy, as not capable, and you don't like yourself, maybe even you hate yourself, it's very, very hard to add value to yourself. Because we nurture things that we love. We nurture things that we love. So if we love ourselves, we nurture ourselves. If we hate ourselves, we give up on ourselves. And our emotional regulation at that moment is very, very difficult. Third thing that I want to mention is self-perception and identity. It's a very, very interesting thing that because there's complex relationships. Now, we understand there's a personal identity, how you see yourself, how you label yourself, what kind of things um, you say about yourself. There's a social identity that potentially is like, how do you feel others perceive you and how they see you? Because a lot of times we can potentially think what other people think of us, even though and sometimes we attach that label to ourselves, what we feel other people think of us. And I think that it's interesting because we think what other people think of us. So that means that a lot of times we could really be wrong with that. And we put again like a label on something that is not true. There's no strong foundation. And then sometimes we do what we do, self perception is like sometimes we look, compare others or comparing ourselves in according to others. So that means that we look into to others and how do I compare to others? And this is a dangerous game, very dangerous game. Because we have a tendency to start some new skills, such as new behavior, new habit, new something. So that means that we compare sometimes with people that we're not supposed to compare with. So if we have the first step, we compare us with someone who is 100 step, 1,000 step. How we will feel that imposter because it seems that we're not able and not capable. No, we just started. Or maybe we moving forward and we compare with someone who is lower than us, and we have that superior. Oh, like I'm doing great, even though you don't do great because you just started. I think it's very, very important to really understand that we compare just for a moment with someone who is very similar layer to understand where we are in general, but then execute, and compare yourself with yourself for a long period of time until you can, just for the reality reason, to check where you are in the moment. But just for a second, just understand we need reality support, but we need to compare ourselves with ourselves. And that's why we really understand what are the core self. What are the core self? What are values? What are beliefs? What are all those things? And when you understand that, of course, it's much, much easier to relate to you because I think that having strong identity helps because it allows you to be much more authentic, and authenticity attracts people. Authenticity attracts success. Because if you have a mask all the time and changing all the time, you're not able to learn how to be yourself. If you're changing who you are all the time, you're not able to learn to live the way who you are. It's very important to really learn how to live based on yourself. I think that is very, very important to mention besides self-perception is a lot of times what we do is we have a self deception. And that's again foggy mirror leads to self-deception. And what are those self-deception? Is minimization. So that means developing really attitude about our weaknesses or shortcomings and minimizing those our problems. I think that a lot of times what I found that we have a tendency to know our problems, but we downplay it, deny it, minimize it, and we don't solve it. And we don't solve it, we sometimes could have that self-perception that, oh, I just never make things happen. No, we just need to fix those problems and not minimize it and really don't deny it and go after them. Second is rationalization. So that means that when we think about our behaviors, we rationalize it. That means that we avoid confronting problems. We avoid confronting things that could allow us to really become better, improve our self perception. And the last one, that's very, very common, is projection. We have our problems, we have our beliefs, have some kind of flaws, and we have a tendency to project our own flaws to other people. And that's a lot of triggers. And that's why it's one of the best ways is to see what is your flaw, is look into what triggers you. What triggers in other people? What makes you super angry? What kind of things when other people do makes you emotional? And those are the things that you probably have those flaws in yourself. I probably have heard it already. So, as I said, that this is very powerful topic, and I think that there's so much more because if we're actually wanting to grow and become that person, best version of ourselves, we need to really be more present, be more mindful, have growth mindset, because self-perception is something that we're able to improve constantly. Clear that mirror, have the clarity, because one of the most beautiful things in life, having clarity about your values, about your beliefs, about where you're going, what's your vision, what's your goals, what's your skill sets, where you are, and what kind of steps you're gonna take. Because when you know those kind of things, when you know those kind of things, it's so much easier to execute, so much faster to go. Again, one thing that's when people say like, some people just move fast. It seems that they achieve in 1 year like other people in 10 years. I think that's is highly because of self perception, because self perception gives clarity, and that clarity gives speed. So I hope that you reflect on that as well and really improve it. Because if you do not know much about yourself, if you never reflect on that, it probably will take some time until you finally get into some form of understanding. And I really love John C. Maxwell saying that one of the quotes that really represents self perception and why it's so important is he said that you cannot outperform your self image. You cannot outperform your self image. So the way how you see yourself, your actions will dictate. Your self perception will dictate your actions. So the better you see yourself, the better actions you'll take, the more bold actions you'll take. The lower you see yourself, the less courage and less bold actions will take. And of course, what that leads to? Leads to lower results. So let's work, let's build self-perception, let's build self-image and go after big dreams. So I hope you choose to win and see you tomorrow.